Welcome back to CryptosRUs. I'm George, or all George. So tonight, let's talk about Bitcoin's rapid adoption, global adoption. And there's one entity that hates it and issues a dire warning over the rapid growth. Who are they? Let's talk about it. And let's talk about what else is going on in the world of crypto. So, welcome. Let's jump right into it. Let's get into global adoption and who hates global adoption. Well, let's start out with El Salvador. We know that they're the first country to fully embrace Bitcoin, right? President Bukele took out, or actually borrowed a whole bunch of money by issuing bonds, right? About 800 million because they wanted to get involved with Bitcoin. Before, El Salvador would be very dependent on the IMF and the World Bank, right? But they decided to do things differently. They wanted to break the chains. They wanted to attain financial freedom, so to speak, for an entire country, right? So ever since El Salvador made this move, it's been controversy one after another. People obviously picking on the president and his decision after Bitcoin came down, right? And there was a lot of talk about how they're in dire trouble, that they can't pay back their bonds, right? Well, President Bukele today answered that, no, I did pay it back. You know what? I paid it back with interest, but here's the thing. People don't want to cover it. Media does not want to cover this story because the media is driven to drive this narrative that Bitcoin is bad and how FUD, right? Basically FUD dominates the views. So no one's talking about how this was a non-event, right? And President Bukele continues forward. He continues to believe in Bitcoin, right? Recently, their lawmakers passed or voted for the volcano bonds, right? Which basically allows miners miners in El Salvador to basically mine with free energy, with volcanic energy, right? And they want to sell bonds to kind of grow this. Not only grow this, but also just grow El Salvador and get them off the reliance of the IMF and the World Bank, right? So they're still moving forward. And plus, of course, they hold a ton of Bitcoin. They hold a ton of Bitcoin and they continue to buy more, right? But who's this one entity? Who doesn't like this, right? I think it's obvious. The IMF. The IMF is basically one gigantic bank, and they like to keep countries, they like to control countries, basically, right? They loan out a whole bunch of money to countries that are really struggling, and you got them, right? You got them hooked. So when El Salvador started getting involved with Bitcoin, started buying Bitcoin, started issuing bonds, right? Talking about volcano bonds, IMF, World Bank both hated it. Even El Salvador, they're asking for IMF for advice, maybe to even help them embrace Bitcoin as legal tender and also putting Bitcoin on balance sheet. Of course, IMF said, no, right? Too much financial risk, really? Or is it because they just don't want to lose grasp of these countries, right? So we're definitely seeing global adoption, and El Salvador's paved the way. Right now, Fiji's new pro-Bitcoin prime minister is thinking about making Bitcoin legal tender, right? So it's already started. It started. The second country that embraced Bitcoin as legal tender, Central African Republic, right? They've already done it, and now they're trying to embrace crypto even more, coming out with more favorable crypto bills and regulations to allow crypto to thrive, right? And of course, you have bigger countries like Brazil that's already legalized Bitcoin as payment for merchants. But recently, Brazil and Argentina are both thinking about creating some kind of new digital currency. Could be CBDC, but many people are thinking and suggesting, hey, why do that? Why not just embrace Bitcoin, right? And maybe that's a possibility. So we're starting to see global adoption already around the world. It's not just the US and Europe and Asia, right? The big countries that we know, but a lot of countries that suffer a lot more than we do with either hyperinflation or financial instability, right? Or they're just way too dependent on the IMF and World Bank. They're utilizing Bitcoin for the same reasons we are as retail investors, trying to break free and attain financial freedom, right? So this is fantastic. I've covered a lot of news about US states now fully embracing Bitcoin. We have countries doing so. The adoption is growing by leaps and bounds. But of course, there will be people or entities in this case, or specifically banks. Banks do not want to see Bitcoin thrive because they are threatened by it. All the shenanigans that banks pull, if you learn about money, you learn about how the financial system works, you realize it's just one gigantic Ponzi scheme that will one day collapse. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it will. And that's why they want to keep things going. They don't want people to opt out and break out. So, wanted to start with that. I think it's awesome to see so many countries and El Salvador still continue to stay strong despite the market turn, right? Despite coming down. It's a hard decision to make, right? Especially, you're the first country to do so, but it's awesome that we're seeing more and more, right? Yeah. And also, as for Bitcoin itself, well, Bitcoin, the network itself continues to grow. Take a look. Bitcoin processed $42 trillion worth of value, okay, last year. That's more than double of MasterCard and Visa combined, right? So Bitcoin is not just a store of value. It's also the most secure and most decentralized payment network that we have, right? Imagine as more and more countries, more and more people get involved, that number will only go up. And this is not counting Lightning Network, which is also going up by leaps and bounds, which basically offer instantaneous and almost feeless transactions anywhere around the world. I mean, Bitcoin is certainly growing and adopting, by leaps and bounds. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. As for some good charts, here's one that shows the EMA 9 and 18 basically crossing over. Now, last time it did this, you look at in 2019, that was when we were coming off a bottom, and we recovered pretty substantially afterwards, right? In 2015, 2016, there was it's the same thing, but then we got faked out a little bit, but then afterwards, boom, once again, we had a tremendous upside. So can we see the same thing happen again? Definitely possible. Definitely possible. I know today Bitcoin came down a little bit. That may be shocking for some of you guys, but to put things in perspective, it went down about $300. Okay, so we didn't crash. Nothing scary is happening. It came down a little bit, right? And basically, we're still going sideways. We're consolidating, and that is perfectly okay, especially seeing how fast and how high we have come up within just a matter of weeks, right? So the whole space is still doing good. We're at 1.02 trillion. Keep in mind, trillion, we're still in the T mark. So just a little bit downwards movement today, just a little bit correction, nothing to be panicking about. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is DeFi. I think DeFi is growing stronger and stronger and stronger. A lot of you guys may have noticed some of these DeFi projects, such as Lido, skyrocket, right? So here's a really good chart looking at all the major chains. Well, I mean, major DeFi projects and some chains, right? And basically looking at, the fees that they have collected, right? Why is this important? Well, the fees basically mean they scale up with usage, right? So you're definitely seeing most on Ethereum. That makes sense. But then you have DEXs like Uniswap, right? PancakeSwap that's on there, but also you have other DeFi projects like Lido, which is more like a staking, got a staking project, but also you have Convex Finance, which I'm not too familiar with, and also you have like Aave, right? So DeFi overall is growing, and it makes sense because fear of another FTX, fear of centralized exchanges, right? So I do think DeFi is definitely going to keep growing this year and beyond, and some of them are making big moves already. For example, Uniswap just proposed to move V3 to the Binance chain. They are ready. Look at this. They're already on Ethereum, already on Polygon, Arbitrum, Optimism, a little bit on Celo, and now they're looking to integrate BNB. So they are just expanding, and 80% voted yes. So this will be happening, right? So Uniswap is definitely making moves to try to expand outside the EVM space and getting to BNB. Even though BNB is realistically, they're EVM compatible, so it's still within the EVM space. But BNB does have a lot of DeFi projects, a lot of projects in general that's just within the Binance chain. So Uniswap definitely trying to set themselves and continue their lead as the biggest DEX out there. Now, they're not alone. SushiSwap, which is, I think they're still like the second biggest DEX really on Ethereum. They had their troubles. They had their up and downs, right? But they're also making moves because they want to better themselves or prepare themselves for the future. So for 1 year, they're going to reallocate all fees into their treasury, right? And this will, beef up, basically get their treasury up so that they have enough money to operate. So SushiSwap also, and SushiSwap is also across multiple chains. They're also looking at aggregating. They're looking at basically aggregating liquidity from several chains, right? So they're also moving forward and major developments happening. Now, outside, there's other stuff that's happening. For example, finally, Cody announced this. Djed, which is the stablecoin for Cardano, is launching next week. They promised that they were going to launch Djed, which is the very first stablecoin within Cardano's ecosystem. They promised to launch within January, and it's finally coming. So I noticed Cody went up a little bit today, right? But why this is exciting? Well, because this beefs up Cardano's DeFi ecosystem, which is kind of lagging compared to a lot of the other chains out there. But a lot of people are very excited about this. Djed already have formed several partnerships. There's several Cardano dApps that will be embracing Djed, and we'll see. We'll see how this enriches Cardano's ecosystem, right? So a lot of stuff happening. I'm just giving you little taste into what's going on in DeFi. I do think DeFi is going to grow by leaps and bounds this year, especially because of distrust in centralized exchanges and also distrust in centralized finance, right? After Genesis, BlockFi, Celsius, Voyager, all these lending companies went down. On top of that, you have FTX going down, right? It just makes sense. People want to utilize a decentralized finance dApp instead. All right. So those are two major things I want to cover. I did also want to cover a few other things. Coinbase, it's interesting. I just got done talking about how there's a distrust in centralized finance, but in January, surprising, Coinbase is the only exchange that actually saw their volume increase. 0.3%, nothing to brag about, but at least they saw an increase. Even Binance saw a decrease. Bitfinex saw a decrease. Gemini saw a huge decrease because of Genesis, and Kraken saw a decrease, right? So it kind of shows you that people are still sticking with name recognition, which is, of course, Coinbase. But I think rightfully so, because they are the biggest and most regulated exchange in the US, so it makes sense. But you could see a huge drop off with every single major centralized exchange out there, right? So kind of interesting, kind of interesting. What's also interesting is their chief product officer is leaving. I don't know why, 3 years within a 5-year contract, but he's leaving with $105 million payday, mostly because of stocks. Okay, but still, that's like what, roughly $30 million per year. That's not too shabby. That's not too shabby. But I don't know. I don't know why that's relevant, but I just thought that's a boatload of money to be leaving with. And then as for today, the U.S. market didn't do very well, right? Mostly because of these two things. Number one, the Department of Justice files an antitrust suit against Google. They think Google is just too big. Not only do they control the biggest search engine, right, but they also control the biggest ad business, and they see both sides, right? So the Department of Justice sees this as a monopoly that's too hard to break. So will they break Google? I don't know. So this came out, actually, of course, caused some FUD, right? But also what caused some FUD is Microsoft, they reported fantastic earnings. They beat revenue, they beat profit, but they issued a guidance that they see their cloud division, Azure, being weak for the remainder of this year. And then that spooked the market because they're like, well, if Microsoft is saying this, well, then the rest of the market can't be good, right? So after these two events kind of brought the U.S. market down a little bit, right? But Microsoft actually had a spectacular quarter, way better than anyone anticipated. Tomorrow, the big one will be Tesla, but that's coming after market, so we're not going to know during the day. But those two news kind of like shook the market a little bit today. Not in a big way, but just a little bit. All right, that's pretty much it. Let's do some Q&A. I saw Nickel Suave. Welcome on Twitch. Ram Rider, welcome on Rumble. And everyone else on YouTube. All right, let me see here. Scrolling down, a lot of negative people. With Bitcoin falling like $300, all of a sudden you got all these people that turned bearish. I don't know what that's about. Will you buy coin stock? I actually bought some options, some call options on Coinbase last week. So I had a little bit left in my brokerage account. I wanted to see. I think they're going to trend up with Bitcoin. So Coinbase is tied specifically to Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin's going to do well, they're going to do well. So I took a little chance with Coinbase. Let's see here. Interactive, I appreciate it. Wanna 1v1 me on Xbox Live? No thanks. Phantom is very underrated right now. It has been making moves. Phantom has been coming up. But yeah, if you're looking at, where they are now versus their previous peak, I mean, there's a tremendous upside there. Justice Gate. Rewind and come back. Hopefully you make it. Bought the smallest BTC dip ever. You know what? That's perfectly okay. Or you could wait until a certain percentage, or you could just buy on a schedule in DCA. With all the trust issues in crypto, do you see value of the platform like Corretto? I have no idea, Alex, what platform that is. So my answer would be no, because I've never heard of it. George, to be honest, the people who come to your live during this massive bear market are the real holders. Of course, yes. That's why I say congratulations to everyone that have survived. Anyone that is still with me watching right now, right? You survived the longest downturn in Bitcoin's history. We have never gone down this long for over a year, about a year and 1 month. This is the longest drawdown ever compared to even 2018 and even 2015, right? Now, the percentage is not as much as before. And of course, our low is much higher than previous lows. But to be able to survive 1 full plus year of down, right? That takes willpower. That takes a lot of conviction, right? And if you survive that, then pretty much you could survive anything that happens. That's why when things were bad, I said, hey, we had bad actors before. We had major hacks before. We had exchanges go under before. And Bitcoin always pulls through and continues forward. When are we going to get another Blue Label stream? Not until we get some crazy moment happening. And plus, I'm cutting back alcohol too. Trying to be a little bit more healthy. No, my dream house is not going to be done anytime soon, World Wonders. But it is exciting to see it being built. Do you think advertising disruption is the next narrative given that Google is being sued? I don't know if that's going to really end up anything. They may get a slap on the wrist again. I have no idea what project you're talking about, ADS. Any ad business in crypto basically is non-existent. I mean, basic attention token tried to do it, and it just never caught on, right? So having a decentralized ad platform has been tried by several projects. Not to say that it won't work eventually, but right now it's just so... It's not there. The ad business is controlled by one company and one company alone, and that is Google. Lego giveaway. I did that before. I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. It's just it's a big pain. Big pain in the butt. Some people complain about paying shipping or whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do it anymore. Anita Walters, I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. Bettsville, no, I'm not into mining anymore. I think for me personally, I think using that money to buy crypto is better than to buy equipment to try to mine crypto. Because if you don't have that advantage, that economy of scale, like a lot of the big miners do with electricity and cooling, you're at a disadvantage. So rather than spend thousands to get miners to mine, you could just simply buy Bitcoin. So I think that's the best course of action. Mia, stop trying to show Omi. Omi's just fine, but you know, they lost obviously all their momentum. They had a credit card hack before, you know, but they still own a lot of licensing. Now, the thing is, a lot of the licensing that they have, right, it seems like their licensing is more for like cartoonish kind of characters, because some of their licensing, I mean, like for example, they have a partnership with Disney, but Disney also has a partnership with Polygon to issue NFTs, right? So they're somewhat exclusive and somewhat not. It'll be interesting to kind of figure out what kind of license they actually have permission to use versus what these other projects do, right? Like VV also has licensing to NFL, but NFL has their own NFTs on other platforms too. So it's kind of strange how that works. Clocks boy, I'm not gonna answer that question. I'll leave you to guess. Malt, don't quit on your dreams. Love the SBF Adventures. Well, I appreciate it, but seems like it's not going to work out. Is Yearn Finance a good project? Yeah, it was. It was created by Andre Crony, so so that's good. One of the main DeFi architects out there, but it was hacked like 3 times, so I kind of lost interest after that. DD, a lot of people airdrop random NFTs to random people. Don't worry about it. It's not a hack or anything. What's pumping OP optimism? I think overall, a lot of projects that were just very oversold, they're coming up. It's quite simply that, like that. I noticed a lot of L1s, even ones that have no activity, right? They started pumping. You know, a lot of the layer 2s like Optimism, Arbitrum, Immutable X, they got like Zilliqa, they were all pumping. Aptos was pumping. You know, I think just a lot of people are flocking in right now. A lot of oversold projects. Solana, we saw how much it pumped too. A lot of L1s, L2s, just very oversold, and people are coming back into them. Jesse, I think you just made up that number. I'm gonna be honest, bud. I don't know where you heard that number. I think you just made it up to try to shill Cadena a little bit. That's okay. If they really do, great. But we need to see some of those dApps come aboard and start bringing users to the platform. I don't have any thoughts on Pi Network. None. See if the George effect is kicking in. Maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit. I have no doubt we'll get back to 20, 22.8, 23 again. I think the market got spooked a little bit by the Department over Google and Microsoft today. Got a little spooked, but we know that Bitcoin, it's going to do its thing, right? Global adoption is definitely growing. The network is growing. You know, holders are growing, addresses are growing. I mean, everything that you can measure is growing. Even the hash rate, even though there was some talks about miners selling and they're turning off machines, well, obviously that stopped because hash rate is back to all-time highs. Big Mike, congratulations. I have not seen that kind of weight loss for a while. It kind of stalled, just kind of maintaining, but you lost 8 pounds. Congratulations. CKB, I haven't paid attention, Nervos, but if you're a Cardano guy, you know, they have a big relationship with Cardano. They're kind of like the interoperability play for Cardano, even though they have kind of released, they're working on side chains and stuff like that, but they were supposed to be an interoperable play for Cardano. Silver something. I thought about it. I thought about what others in the space have done, which is to have co-hosts and talk with other people and stuff like that, right? It would definitely make things easier. You know, so I'm not just talking to myself, but, you know, but then again, this is doing pretty good. What I'm doing is pretty good. People tune in, love what I'm doing, so I don't know if I should change things up at all. Harvey, yeah, just because some dude on Twitter said it, it must be true, right? Algo Ploy. Good evening from Hawaii. Man, I gotta visit you someday. I gotta go to Hawaii. Plane tickets are just way, way, way too expensive, but eventually. Would you consider doing a live show at Chick-fil-A? Why? What's so special about Chick-fil-A? If corporate invites me, sure, I'll go to Chick-fil-A. But with my new house, once it's done, I have a couple new cool setups. I'll be able to stream in not only my dedicated recording space, but I'll have a section in my garage and a section in my basketball court. You know, I could change things up. I think it'll be pretty cool. I could stream while shooting baskets. Sam, I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Yeah, we'll have a dedicated Lego room too, but I don't think I'm going to be streaming in there. My Lego room is go like quadruple in size because right now it's just way too small. It's just like no space for anything. How do I find you on Twitch? It's the same. CryptosRUs. I used to call my Twitch channel the G Spot, but it was too controversial, so I had to rename it. Joel Lamas, I feel very strongly that you shouldn't have a co-host. Don't mess with success. Yeah, I mean, that's how I see it, but, you know, having a co-host could definitely extend the show because then we could banter, we could talk, you know. I know the other channels, they do, and, you know, it just seems like sometimes it's more, I don't know, more free-flowing, right? But it is what it is. All right, guys. I'll let you go tomorrow. Tune in, same time, 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. And we'll see where Bitcoin is. And we'll see what else is going on in the world of crypto. So smash the like, subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.